BIC podcast episode number 84. We've got a couple of weeks away from the National. We had the Dallas Card Show that came this past weekend. And obviously, the big topic du jour today, as we've been coming out of the weekend, is going to be the main topic. We're definitely going to talk about that. There was a rather large theft at the Dallas Card Show. So we'll discuss on that a little bit. A couple of different angles that I want to take on it. So we'll definitely touch on that. I'll do a little bit of housekeeping items as well. So we'll touch on that as well. And we'll basically see what happens as we go on the road to the National. We know some people were trying to get on the road and trains, planes, and automobiles. There's a lot of that. Look, more of that in this episode of the BIC podcast. All right. A couple of quick housekeeping items that we'll do right off the top because I did such a poor job last week. This week, AMGcollectibles.ca and the AMG Collectibles YouTube channel. We got it right at the beginning this time. Last episode, we went the whole episode, great conversations, having all that. And all of a sudden I go, oh, I completely forgot. So this week we got it right at the beginning of the episode. We'll definitely have a good conversation. And obviously, as this drops on Tuesday morning, later on in the day, that'll be the AMG podcast. Yes, Brandon.
Is that why nobody commented on the last video? Because I thought we did very well. We had
I think you weren't scandalous enough. That's the problem. You were not sufficiently scandalous. Usually you're pretty scandalous. And then people are like, a lot of anger.
Nobody commented. I was like, what the hell? We had actually a good conversation about collecting and things like that. And nobody even commented.
The problem is they all agreed and no one ever wants to type, I agree. Like, there's not, I'm not comfortable with this. I refuse. I just won't do it.
Say anything bad about Eric, though. I was very disappointed.
That is surprising.
Yeah, like I was deeply disturbed by it. Like it hurt my feelings.
I thought everybody's like batteries ran out in their keyboards or something. I'm going with it. I'm sticking with that theory. It was battery refresh day, and so we'll go with it.
But if the batteries on your keyboard and the batteries on your mouse are working, you can go to AMG Collectibles and AMGcollectibles.ca. Check out a lot of things. Links in the description. We thank them for supporting the podcast and the channel. So thank you for that. Quick couple of updates. First of all, the ComC shipping is getting close, Eric. We're under 400 items ahead. Like, we're getting close. We're way ahead of schedule. Like, I don't know. Boys, can you get this out the door by Friday? I don't know. That's listen, time. I'll report back, but we're getting 362 items ahead of my order, Brandon. It is supposed to ship out on July the 25th. It's July the 8th as we're recording. Listen.
You'll have it in time for your birthday.
Listen, I would love nothing more than to say that finally the building that can be seen from space and the machine have finally worked in our favor. Can it be? Will it happen? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
ComC needs to hire some more people.
They really do. It's all the time. The jokes are never ending. But nonetheless, and the thing is, I do know some folks from ComC, and they're very nice people. To be clear, they're very nice people.
People that work there are really overworked.
They really are.
I think
they do work hard. We give them credit. They do work hard. But sometimes it's frustrating.
Do they have the budget to hire new employees, though? Because, I mean, how much do they have to spend on all those, like, top loaders back during the pandemic when they were, like, literally out of top loader? Like, who in the hell would have ever expected that to happen?
Those are crazy times, man. The crazy times.
Yeah.
We were in the top loader shortage of Ot 1. Crazy times. Well, 21.
I remember telling you guys the story when I was in I did during the pandemic, family health emergency. I had to go to San Antonio. Things were calm for a while, so I went out and checked out a.
Well, that's a serious emergency. If you have to go to San Antonio, that's like life or death.
Yeah. So things were calm for a bit. Things were stable. So I went and checked out a card shop and bought something, and.
This is where you have to negotiate for the top loader.
I had to negotiate for the mag holder. Yeah. There had to be. It's like, all right, they wanted this much money. I'm like, how about this? I said, how about this?
They were like $8 back then.
Brandon,
it was ridiculous.
In the year 2021,
yeah,
there would have been a heist to take this from me.
Yeah.
A heist would have been required.
So I actually had to work in the negotiation to get a 35-point mag holder so the card could go into and be safe. That's how crazy it was.
Mm-hmm. Those were crazy times. One other thing I'll quickly mention. I always talk occasionally about the other YouTube channel, the one where I do the wrestling cards. You got to wrestling. So we got to have that. But I did actually make a new video on the wrestling channel. I've actually been able to get a couple of videos out here and there. So I try to do it when I can. I'm happy with the last one because it was actually an update on a previous video that I'd done on this channel where I talked about kind of the state of wrestling cards, of the cards. But part of the reason for it is because a lot of stuff hasn't changed. I do pick on Upper Deck a little bit. We got our friends at Upper Deck. We love them, much love. But nonetheless, there is some critique that it can be given. So I did give it where it was because certain things haven't changed and they're a bit of an issue on it. I'll include a link to that in the description because I am actually very proud of the update to the video, and I also included a link in that video to the first video because some of those items haven't changed, and I stand by what I said in that video because it holds up. Even to this day, I did that in early 2023, and then in the middle of 2024 now, the issue is still the same issue. So it's something that plays into it, and I have to cover it because apparently anybody that does wrestling cards as part of the content space, when they're talking about that, they're basically talking about WWE and only WWE. And I'm like, well, there's other stuff. So it's like, but okay, fine. I'll talk about the other stuff. I'll talk about the stuff that you guys don't always talk about. And I also talk about WWE as well, but whatever. At least give it some coverage. So I'll include a link to that in the description. Real quick, I'm going to get into the main topic here now. But before I do, is there any updates or anything you guys want to share? Anything you guys want to touch on before I move over to the main topic?
My dude James Wood got called up and hit his first homer already.
He did. And I sent you a picture, and I expect you to be buying, base card from our friends at the Fanatics Overlords. They got wonderful base cards, game used bases from his first home run. Like, it's very exciting.
That's something we could talk about in a future episode. I own one card that has the base in it, and the only reason I bought that one is because it was from the wild card game that I actually attended. I'm not a big fan of them.
See, the thing is, I actually like the concept, but I think it's very expensive because did you see how much it actually costs for that particular one?
I didn't look it up, but I seen there was like 1,500 of them, I think, or something.
Yeah, they break it up into different levels. They're different numbered levels, different numbered parallels. But you basically what you're doing is you're effectively buying a pack. So you could get the most common one, or you could get the one of one, or whatever. They're anywhere in between. You could get different ones. But it was like $239 or $240. So it's like so it's very expensive. I didn't even pay that
I paid about that for the red auto I have. So no.
Yeah. The point though is I like the game used portion of it. I like the fact that it's associated to a game in which obviously he hit his first career home run. I think that's cool. And I like the fact the sticker corroborates the specific game and everything. So this is like we people complain about game used. In this case, they're linking it to the specific game and the specific situation. So I think those aspects of it are very cool. And they do keep the print run low relative to the amount of stuff because they're using real game used bases for it. But I think the starting price of like $239, $240 is too high, in my opinion. Yeah. So I think that's the issue there. That. Yeah, you'd have to be really hardcore, I think, to make that interesting for you. But it is a very pricey way to get into it. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'll shift over. Main topic we wanted to talk about was the theft, since right now that's the big topic. A real quick point before I get into it, and I'll show a link. I'll share links to all of this. We'll share links to an Instagram. We'll share links to the Sports Collectors Daily article talking about it as well. But obviously, a lot of folks have covered this. Neo had a video that went viral in our space, so to speak, with that. But I was mentioning to the guys that this thing has moved so fast and so far that even the content creators of the Pokemans have gotten into the game. Like, we got Random Pokemon making a video. We got a couple of other Pokemon content creators that I'm familiar with making videos about it. And when that's happening, when the Pokemans people are making videos about it, that means the thing has gone, it's gone ablaze all over the hobby space. So a lot of people are talking about this one. So it is led, I will say, I won't spend too much time on this, but I will briefly mention that it has led to comment sections where we have a lot of people that have interesting theories, provocative ideas, let's just leave it at that. It's brought out the best and not best in our content space, or in our commenters, let's say. I think that's, Eric, I think that's a 5% more mature way of saying it. It is not brought out necessarily the best in some of the responders and some of the theories.
When we are not being 5% more mature on Friday, I'll have a different reaction to that nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But the point is, regardless, I think what is fair to say is that it has elicited a reaction. a lot of commenters, a lot of commenting, and a lot of videos and different posts related to it. It has been cascaded out and wide, far and wide. So let's briefly touch on it here. And I'll hit on a couple of key points and then we'll talk about it. And we'll try to balance it out a little bit with the general discussion of the facts, also some thoughts and theories, and also maybe a little bit of a critique that I think is valid here in this case. So again, I'll leave links to this in the description so that people can check it out on their own. Feel free to read it on your own time if you want to read it in more depth. So bottom line, vintage sports card dealer was a victim of a major theft at the Dallas Card Show. Ashish Jai, owner of Legacy Cards, says thieves took a case with dozens of valuable inventory. So he did include a lot of images, which includes 6 52 Topps Mickey Mantle cards, 2 51 Bowman Mantle rookies, and numerous other Mantle cards, 2 Leaf Jackie Robinson rookies, and other Hall of Fame cards. So there's a lot of different ones. So I'm just going to showcase this. You see a Hank Aaron rookie, you see a 52 Topps Willie Mays. Like there's high-end quality vintage, either high grade or very, tougher to come by. You got a Stan Musial rookie card there. You got a 49 Bowman, Satchel Paige. You've got predominantly vintage here, a really high grade, an SGC 10 Tom Seaver rookie. Like that's a very high-end piece, especially for that. So again, either high grade rarity or just generally quality vintage pieces with big names. Now, I will share. So this right here is the individual that was suspected and is shown here carrying the case that happened to have all that stuff. And we're going to talk about that in a minute here because we'll pull some stuff through it. But here's some 52 Topps Mantles. So a lot of Mickey Mantle cards, Babe Ruth cards, pre-war cards, Ty Cobbs and Honus Wagner's and all kinds of things. And look, bunch of Aaron rookies, like all kinds of stuff. So you can start adding up, you can add up these price tags, even if you say the price tags are a little bit high because obviously a dealer and you're trying to get a good deal on it, it's still a lot of money represented here. And this kind of plays into what we've talked about in the past, right? The vintage crowd always tries to talk up how, vintage should be more expensive. Well, in this case, it was a lot of money in terms of this vintage and it was added up over a bunch of different cards. So it wasn't like a Luka Doncic logo man that was one card that was stolen that, is 6 figures or whatever. No, this was a whole stack of very nice, different vintage that goes into a lot of collection, a lot of collecting categories. So I'm going to share a couple of images. I'll also share the Instagram and everything. But before I continue, that's the general lay of the land. Any initial thoughts before I move on?
Just that I'm disgusted. We know that corruption, or however we phrase it on Fridays when we're being silly and we have our rules, crime, corruption, lying, cheating, stealing is rife in the hobby. And we'll talk about it in a few minutes that, people stealing things off tables at card shows is not a new thing. It's quite old, unfortunately. But I'm just absolutely disgusted when my friend Amit sent me this information first thing this morning, and I read it. Really, just started my day off wrong. I just find it to be absolutely disgusting. And watching the video, it just made my stomach turn. That these professional thieves had a plan. They follow through with their plan to a T. Even making sure that they pointed over there in a distance and made people look and all this. It was just disgusting to watch. And I really, really, really hope more than ever before that these people are caught. And since it's in Texas, I have a lot more faith that they will be held accountable. And I guess that's about it. I'm just disgusted.
Sure. So while we're talking here, I'm playing a little bit of the footage. It is included there. It's Day Sports Cards on Instagram. I will include a link to the post in the description there for you if you want to check it out yourself. It is some of the security footage. We've seen it in a couple of places. So we've definitely, it's been showcased in a few different spots, but it kind of gives you a little bit of a lay of it. So Brandon, before I say anything else, like I'm just letting it play while we're talking. Is there anything you want to say just initially before we get into kind of what we're seeing here and also some thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, I would like to say, as someone that knows Ashish and his son and has dealt with him several times, both buying, selling, and actually helping him or helping others that have submitted cards through us, like not necessarily negotiate a deal, but connect Ashish with people that had cards looking to sell. Um, when I seen, like, I believe it was Neo posted or something in the Discord, something about a theft. I Googled it and I seen his post on Net 54's forum, and I seen Ashish's name. I think you probably see my reaction in the Discord because he's somebody I consider as a friend. He's been a part of our Facebook group. I just pulled it up since November of 2020. Again, I see him at Chantilly all the time. His son is young. We always talk about we need youth in the hobby. I think his son's probably maybe 20 years old and is a dealer here with his dad dealing in vintage cards. And, you know, if this happened to anybody, you know, it sucks, period. Like it's a black eye to the entire community. But I really, really, really stand behind these guys are really good people. They've always been great buying, they've been great selling. They're stand up individuals. They're all over Facebook and tons of Facebook groups, you know, selling, buying. And I don't have anything that I could say bad about them. And so when you see something to this level happen to good people, I think we all should all stand up. I mean, we want this hobby better, and we know this stuff happens all the time. But when it happens like this to this scale to good people, I think we all need to come together and you know really kind of look at the shitty side of what goes on and try to make that better. I know we're not going to ever solve it all, but um, something needs to be done. So anyway,
Mhm. Sure.
hopefully the people are found and the cards are found. So
Mhm. Now, I'll go in and talk about a couple of things here on the video, but we'll also talk about some other things, examples, and things like that. But I want to make clear before we get into anything else, because again, I won't spend too much time on this venue. We can talk about a little bit more on Friday because we can have a little bit more fun, a little more loose with part of it. Again, it brought in all kinds of commentary. But one of the things that I think is important to note that I would counter with some of this is the more benign because there were some more flammable commentary, let's say. Let's just use that flammable. But the more benign is that, you know, this is a more recent phenomenon because of the pandemic and everything and prices going up. No. This is speaking as somebody who's been going to card shows going back 30 plus years. I cannot remember a show in which there has not been some kind of a theft. Now, what
but
happens is go ahead.
I was just like, let's take it a step further. When we were kids in elementary school and stuff, like, and we would take cards to school, we all probably experienced either stuff stolen from us or stuff stolen from our friends. Like
Sure.
when we were in school, you know, this isn't anything new. People are silly as hell for thinking that.
No, for sure. But I'm just talking about the good old fashioned somebody grabs stuff off a table, or you know, a dealer is lax
Yeah.
in their attention, and then something gets. There has never been a show that I have ever attended, and that goes to. I always talk about the expo. The expo is twice a year, and I have attended upwards of 50, almost 60 of these shows over the course of 30 plus years, like year after year after year, lots of these shows. And there has never been a show in which case I do not either hear directly about or you see a security person walk by and the simplest, and I'll give an example from a recent one that Eric was around for, somebody that we know even. So it's kind of more direct. So it's a situation where the security person will walk by and say, hey, by the way, we got a report that, you know, XYZ was stolen or whatever. If you see this, you know, let us know. Because basically they got a report that somebody had stolen somebody off a table. So it is the most common thing. The thing is, most of the time, it's not 6, 7 figures. So it doesn't come off the page the same way. In this case, one of the points that I wanted to make here is this is unique in the sense that even though we had that thing in Ohio in Strongsville where somebody stole, you know, the auction items, basically, you know, basically stole the parcel. This was more brazen because this was, even though it was in the teardown period, it was still technically during the show. It was while the dealer had been doing their business and putting the items away. And we'll go back to the footage here in a second. But the point is, both of those were like $2 million plus things. It was the $2 million for the auction thing, and then this one, but $2 million plus comes off the page. And like I said, it extended all the way into Pokemon content creators. It's cascaded to all elements. So obviously it stands out. But $100 thefts, $500 thefts, even $1,000 or $2,000 thefts are a super common occurrence, and nobody's paying that close attention to it. And it's a common. It happened before pandemic. It happened after pandemic. It happened everywhere in between, going back decades and years. And I've never had a year where I didn't see one or two examples of that, where we heard, through the rumor mill, and people were talking about, hey, if you see XYZ, it was stolen from this dealer or that dealer or that dealer, all the time. Now, one example that I'll give from this past fall expo, and that's the one that I mentioned earlier when I was talking to Eric before we started recording, Len, who does Platinum Promotions. He's one of the regular dealers who's been in setting up at that show forever. Now, we're going to talk about this video here in a second, but I'm just going to give you an example just so you can visualize it. So Len is kind of old school, and I'll bring it back up here on the screen in a second. But just before I do, I'll quickly go over this. Len is super old school. He doesn't even have showcases. He literally lays the cards out on the table, if you can visualize it, because I can't show you a picture of it right now. But if you can visualize it, he lays out the cards on the table, graded and ungraded. It makes no difference. He's got them all there. And what happens is they put a plastic tarp over the top of it. And I mean,
see-through.
See-through. Yeah, see-through tarp.
Yeah. It's thick. And it's thick.
Yeah, it's this thick plastic. But what happens is, in order to access the card, you literally have to lift up this tarp. And there are multiple of them, for different tables. But it's this thick, heavy tarp that you have to lift, that's see-through, to get at the card. So it's not as simple as just grab it off the table. No, you literally have to lift it. And it's a whole operation. Because you could easily, just make noise and distract and knock things down and do all kinds of stuff if you're trying to do it in a hurry. A quick grab is not an easy thing to pull off. And yet, somebody still managed to abscond with some cards. And we had that conversation. They say, hey, did you hear somebody stole some cards from Len? Oh, what happened? What cards? What happened? So you get the details and everything, and it circulates around the show because lots of folks know Len. And he's been a longtime dealer at the show. So it happens to everyone. And it's happened a lot of different times, unfortunately. And Len is very, very cautious. And he's got people at the table. So they're being observant. They're being vigilant. They're very careful. They have added a layer of friction to make it harder for somebody to steal it. And it still happened. So there's no guarantees that you can prevent it completely. But to their credit, though, they've made it a lot harder. Now, that'll bring us back into this footage here that I'm going to play for you, because I'm not going to speak to the general way. And it's Ashish Brandon. Am I getting that right?
I believe it. His name it's spelled ASHSH. A lot of people just call him Ash for short.
I'll go with Ash just for simplicity, just so that we keep it simple. So I'm not certain exactly how they set up their table normally. Obviously, this is during the teardown period, so I'm going to make a quick caveat during that, but we'll showcase here. So I'm just going to show this, and again, I'll include a link in the description if you want to see it bigger on your own screen. I'll include a link to it so you can watch it. But I'm going to hit play on this from where we left off. So what happens is, and I'll describe it a little bit for the folks in audio. So you've got a showcase there that's kind of shown here, middle left of this, but it's kind of two sets of tables. Now, the thing is, there's a little bit of a gap in the back. And this is the part that we're a little curious about, and I'll blow it up here because I've got an image of it. But the point is, the gap in the back here is a little bit unusual. Now, I am guessing, and this is something maybe we can confirm, that maybe because it's a teardown period, the other tables might have been moved away a little bit. But that'll still bring me back to a point that I want to make regardless. But let me hit play. And you have to kind of pay attention to the top of the screen here. There's an individual. It's very small on our screen, but they're moving basically these chairs. They're basically trying to blend in with somebody that looks like they're participating in the teardown. And then finally a distraction starts happening at the bottom of the screen. And then they're able to quickly go over and grab a case. So what happens is the people who are manning the booth are all being distracted by a different person. So there is a coordination here. And this is something that a lot of folks that have already made videos have talked about. So there was a coordinated aspect to this where one person is distracting the one son at the bottom. Another one is distracting somebody else on the bottom of the screen. And then all of a sudden there's this little gap. There's room at the top where there is this case with all these items that I'll showcase here in a different Instagram post. And I'll showcase them a little bit better. But you've got all that going on, basically distracting everybody, looking away from where the case is.
Don't forget the third person all the way across in the back in the lime green.
Yes.
Right. So
we got that going on.
Right. And then you
So
get the kid here. So right, there's 3 people, and then there's
yes,
3
3
criminals.
people distracting, and then a 4th person that is grabbing the case.
Right.
Can you go back to the beginning?
I'll have to let it play, but I'll let it run. So you have to give it a second. So anyway, so this person then walks away and kind of goes across the top of the screen. So I have to let it run back because I can't restart it from the beginning. So I'll let it play back. So we'll let it go here in a moment here. And once it restarts here, we'll be able to reset. And again, this will be included in the Instagram post. You'll be able to kind of watch this yourself and start and stop it as many times as you want to and be able to get a bit of a sense of what's going on with it. Okay, so it's restarted there. So what do you want to see there, Brandon?
I was trying to see. So the guy that's walking up right now, I was trying to see where he came from. He literally came all the way from like it looked like over in the right corner and walked all the way around over here to ask them a question, and that distracted. And then as soon as he did, so he was kind of the trigger person.
Yep. And one of the things that was included in this post, as I said, I'll include a link to it so you can read it for yourself because there's a blurb included in it as well. And from what they were able to make out during reviewing the security footage, it appeared that they had been casing the table for a while. They had been looking at it. Obviously, they knew how many people they needed in order to create the distraction that they were requiring so that everybody was looking away from where they needed it to be. And then on top of it, everything else, they waited until kind of a quieter time where there's technically less eyeballs. There's less people around who could see something and go like, hey, what the heck are you doing? So there's less people around. And there was a little bit of a gap there. So distraction, case is just sitting there minding its own business. And then the guy that has been kind of hanging around there, moving chairs, looking busy, trying to look busy in the background there, is then the one who's able to walk over to the case because he already has been there for several minutes doing this for a while. So he's not throwing anybody off, and he grabs the case and he walks away with it. Now, again, I'm going to assume that part of the thing, so I'll zoom in a little bit because I grabbed a little screenshot to make it a little easier to see. But then you guys are welcome to, like I said, check it out for yourself. So this is just blown up. It's the same, video footage, but it's blown up a little bit more so we get a little closer to it. This is the kind of what led to my question. While I understand there is kind of a gap here, and I think if the setup was normal, then it would be kind of a rectangle. I'm guessing these tables were moved back, which created a little bit of space there. But the point is now there's a little bit of a gap here. So 2 things. I don't blame the dealer for there being a gap here if it is because of the teardown and that was part of their process and they were moving stuff and getting it out of the way. However, and this is a critique, it's meant just to be that, I don't like that a case with valuable items, I understand that they were being distracted, but I still don't want to be so far physically away. I'm on the opposite side of the table. Even as I'm being distracted and somebody calls to me, I was still feet away from this case in the first place. I don't like the fact that it was over on the far end in the open area, which was now open, because by the time the case is there, the area is open. Literally anybody can walk by that spot right there. It just so happened these guys were trying to do that, so they were able to take advantage of it. But you literally put the case down right in the middle of it, and you didn't have to go over a table or through a table or do anything or move anything, really. It was wide open. You got to walk right down the path and right out the door. So it's one of those things where that's where, in that scenario, at the end of a show, and I can only speak from experience, having worked with some friends who set up as dealers, they really like to keep their inventory close to the vest. And their inventory cannot match up to the dollar amounts that we're talking about here. We're talking about some very expensive materials that are inside of that one case. That case would take priority. It would be within close proximity. And if somebody calls to me, the case is coming with me. And it's staying right beside me. So that it is not, there's no question of where that case is. Even if my eyes are not on it, it's physically close to my body the whole time. That's just kind of but that's a process. That's something that you do if you're set up as a dealer. So there's just some thoughts I have. Again, just a critique I would point out. I don't like that it created that opening.
It's just sad to me that, obviously you have to be careful. Okay. You have to take better care and you have to be careful. It's just sad that these guys are there to have a good time, hang out with people, be a part of the hobby. And it's sad that life is life and facts are facts, that we have to keep an eye on every little thing because these people are out there. And it's really sad that it takes this $2 million mistake to remind them that they have to keep a better eye on stuff. I hope, always, trying to find the rainbow through the clouds, I guess, is I hope that with this making so much news and so many people talking about it, it will remind everybody how easy this happens and how bad people are, and how easy it is for them to do this to us, the good, honest folk. I will definitely make sure. I wasn't at work today, but I'm sure this was probably discussed at the shop, and I'm going to try to go in tomorrow, and I'm going to make sure that this gets discussed tomorrow, as a reminder that we have to stay on top of things. We can't trust people because they're friendly and smiley, and good conversationalists, and they like the same sports team as us, and whatever. Every customer has to be treated like possibly they're going to steal from us. And
Yeah, and
I hate to live like that, but that's what you have to do.
I think we've kind of discussed this, and we're seeing this in form of cards and in the hobby and the shitty side of the hobby, and it's been around. We talked about it earlier, how this isn't anything new. It just hits home to us because we're part of the hobby. We go to shows, that sort of thing. But this type of theft, this method, this approach of distract and snatch happens in a lot of areas with thieves. Like when I noticed how well they executed this, it would not shock me one bit if these guys have not done this several times. Now, this is like Home Alone, Marv and Al hitting the diamond. But I'm sure they've done this before in some sort of fashion. Now, we can sit there and use this as an example for dealers needing, to tighten up their, be on their toes a little bit more. But I think the shows need to evaluate this too. Because why in the hell, if this was breakdown, were these individuals just moseying around when there's
nobody was
less
around
people
vetting
in
them
there?
to make sure they were still supposed to
Yeah.
be there. Yeah. Now,
And checking things when people are leaving, something to have a little bit of, I mean,
at the bigger shows, there should be better security, right? I mean, Carlos will tell you, and I'm sure you've been to big shows, obviously yourself. Up in the expo, you're wearing wristbands, you got passes around your neck, and when the show ends, if you don't have the right color wristband on, people are throwing you out.
Because and that's really their job, just to walk around and make sure. Yeah.
And
show us that you're supposed to be here.
I'm hanging around after the show, a bunch of times for whatever reason, and people like get a wristband. I'm like, yep. And okay, thanks. Then I could stay until they shut the lights off. They don't care.
And he does. He really, it's very weird.
I do, and it's yes, that's true. We'll talk about that Friday. So, if you don't have that wristband or that pass around your neck, you're not
supposed to be there. You're not supposed to be there. Like, they know you're not supposed to be there. You have no reason. You have no business there at that moment. Now, I did want to touch on this as well. So you'll have to excuse me if you're watching the video version. It was taking me a minute to figure out how to highlight this properly. I did want to, because Brandon had mentioned this, and I wanted to make sure we didn't lose sight of it. So I actually added the little box there to try to showcase something. The theft is what's going on up here. So obviously, our focus is there. But Brandon made a point, and it is valid, and I highlighted around a little red box here if you're watching the video version of it. There is another case here with more cards that has also been left unattended. Now, good for the dealer that that there wasn't a fifth person that came by and absconsed with that case, or it might even be two cases there. So even though it's not the primo stuff, and I'll actually grab the Instagram post where you can see some of the cards a little bit closer as well, but it's not like if you know this dealer's inventory, it's not like that's like $1
No,
cards. There's like some decent stuff there.
he's
So
got a
that
lot
could
of
have
good.
been.
He also, for Paul, if he listens, he has like he's not just baseball, so that showed the big boy baseball stuff. But he has very good. He bought an SGC 8.5 61 fleer Bill Russell off of somebody that submitted it through us. He has high, nice basketball. He has nice football. He has nice like boxing and that kind of stuff too. So he's not just a vintage baseball dealer. He's got a lot of good stuff. That just happened to be the creme de la creme because of the 52 mantles and the stuff that was in that particular case.
Yeah,
I'm sure that other case has some very nice cards in it as well.
Exactly. And the only point I wanted to make is that in this instance, and this goes back to, again, the goal here is not to kick somebody when they're down. The goal here is not to be overly critical. The point is that there are some processes that you do. There is a lesson here to be learned. And hopefully, cross their fingers that with all the attention it's gotten, they're able to get their stuff back. Hopefully that is the case. But the point is, it could have even been worse. And that box that I'm showing you on the screen there indicates that there was an opening there. There was even more that could have happened if a group, again, it was a coordinated effort. They did specifically target and case and do all these things, but there was an opportunity that was presented. There was a window there that was presented and created by the processes that they used. I gave you the example of Len, where that's a very unique way of doing it, but it does make it harder. It's not like he has stuff stolen from him every show. So it was kind of surprising to us, given how difficult it actually is with his setup, that anybody was able to make off with anything. So, but nonetheless, it can happen. But he at least made it harder for somebody, and they weren't able to take off with an entire showcase worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of processes, and I was going to save this for later, but this is something that I think it takes away from the show appeal or maybe the buyer appeal, but I have seen dealers do this. And if we're going to keep seeing stuff like this, the thefts and everything, if we're going to go to this level on thefts, could it become a good idea for dealers to have maybe just printouts of the big boy cards put in their showcase? Like back at the Toys R Us days when you wanted to
keep them under lock and key. Keep them under lock and key.
It had a picture of the card, and you had to pull the little thing out and say, "Hey, I want this video game or whatever." Is that something that these guys might need to go to?
I think that could be something with certain dealers and certain items. I would have that at the expo with any Reggie Lemon M&Ms. Any dealer that has one, I would have that done. I would have them have a black and white picture, and only if you happen to have one, that would be a thing. But I don't disagree. So in all seriousness, I don't disagree that I think you might have to really consider carefully how you want to approach your setup and how you could. But I do think, I think in this case, I won't give, like I said, my goal was not to give them too hard a time.
No.
I think it was a lapse there, and maybe this would be an out I would give them. It's a long show. You're talking to a lot of people. You're doing a lot of things, a lot of hours. It's like trying to keep your mind sharp for hour after hour after hour. You're doing deals. You're talking to people. You're trying to be engaged with people and everything, and your mind lapses. But this is where, again, just in the spirit of a critique to help, this is where having a process that's so locked down that you don't even have to think about it. It's automatic to you. You tear down time. Okay. The box is going over here in the corner because we're basically where the tables are an L. It sits right there in the middle of everything, right in front of somebody. Even if you're talking to somebody, you're talking to them across the table. There's a table between you, them, and the box is between you, the table, and them. So at all times, it's between you and them. You want to grab a box, you got to literally reach between a table and a person and grab it. You're making it harder. So no amount of distraction is going to change the fact that you're creating a physical impediment. But in that case, it was wide open. It was a wide open space that literally anybody could walk through. And I think that made it more difficult. So just get the thought
I don't know how they display their cards at the show. Carlos, we were talking before we went live. Well, not live, you know what I mean, before we hit record, that we have a friend that we think does it right. Okay. We have a friend up in Canada, Steve Angel, that has locked cases. He's the only one with the key. You want to see something, Steve will come over, unlock the case, take that one card out, put the top back down, lock the case. And it's now between, he's standing there, you're standing there, and it's between you guys. What happens next with that card? You're going to buy it or
and that, to Eric's point, though, it's either him personally or one of us, one of his friends that he's known for a long time, because I'm not set up as a dealer there, but I'm at that table on a regular basis. But there can be some times where he's like, Carlos, do you mind watching over this while I go over help out as the other person? I go, yeah, no problem. So now I'm standing there in front of you while you're looking at whatever card, and then you can take as much time as you want looking at. I can't open the case. I don't have the key. But in the meantime, you can be looking at a card to your heart's content. And when you're done, you can hand it back to me, or you can make a deal or whatever's going to happen. But I'm standing there engaging you. And in the meantime, Steve's over there doing his own. So there's somebody there with you while you've got the card in your hand, and we're talking and looking at each other.
They do keep the cases locked. And as you've seen, there was 3 individuals. I've only ever seen 2 of them unlock the cases, and that is Ashish or his son, who, like, I don't know if I mentioned this in the beginning, but when they set up at the National, they actually have multiple booths even at the National. And that's another thing that sucks about this, is the National's coming up, and they just had a big hit of inventory that just got swept away that they're not going to have for the National. So, but normally his son would run a booth at the National, and he would run a booth. So they're like on the same page, and obviously their father's son. But they do keep the cases locked. It's not like, anybody could just flip the lid and pop in.
I think in this instance, though, Brandon, I think in this instance, we're not questioning what they're doing during the show. The end of the show is also a process. So going back to what Eric's saying about Steve's. So show's over, we're in teardown period, or day's over. Not even the show's over. Day's over. All the cases are locked. All of them get stacked. There's like these, these zipper bags, these big old like felt zipper bags.
Yeah,
and they have locks. Yeah, and
those casket. What do they call them? It's not casket bags. It's something.
Body bags.
But yeah, they're body bags. But
basically, yeah. So what happens is those all get zipped up, and then there's a padlock at the end of those. So. Yep. And that's at the end of every day of the show, and if there's something really valuable that you really want to be careful, well, then you can take it with you. So you again, there's still a process. There's certain items that get set aside, certain items that are fine inside of the body bag. They get zipped up and padlocked, and then the security takes over and they make sure to clear the area. Nobody's around, leave all the stuff alone and whatever. But if it's at the end of the show, for example, well then, okay, so now everything gets emptied out. Everything gets put into boxes. So even if people want to talk and they're doing the last bit of conversation, even as that's happening, people are grabbing cards and putting them behind the table. There's a process. Every single show, it's the same process without fail. It never deviates. It doesn't matter who's talking. It doesn't matter what's happening. We take a second to make sure everything gets put away. And that way, every show exactly where the item is. The big items never leave somebody's sight. But that's just practice. That's just doing it over and over again, show after show after show. It becomes I even know the process, and I don't sit up at the show. But I know that, like, literally he does it in a systematic way. Make sure the big cards get taken away first, and then the second level of nice cards, and all the way to the end, everything gets set aside and put away. But it all stays behind the table at all times. It never goes out in any of the gaps or any of the openings, without fail. And that's just a practice thing.
Not to get off the topic of the whole happening and all of that, but when you were scrolling through there, I just want to point this card out because I was amazed by it. It was a few slides back.
Okay.
I don't know if you looked through all of them. Go back. I think it was like 2 more.
2 more. Okay.
Go back 1 more. 1 more. Well, maybe it was further than I thought. Go back. It was a Willie Mays.
Okay, so
it was a Willie Mays. Go back.
I'll take a look.
That one right there.
Okay.
Did you notice that card in the top left corner?
The Venezuelan, yeah.
Yeah, that's a high grade 68 Venezuelan. Like,
Yeah.
those don't exist.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that when I seen that in the pictures, like I hadn't seen that one.
I
But
think it's a good
that,
call out though. I think it's a good call out though to make a point. Some of this stuff is expensive because of high grade,
oh
and some
yeah,
of it is really expensive because it's particularly rare. Because somebody looks at it off in the distance, it looks like a 68 tops, but a little bit washed out. Well, that's because it's the Venezuelan, and that one is infinitely tougher,
So,
especially to
and I
get it in
think it's
really
in a
nice shape.
6 if I'm not
so this
mistaken.
brings me
It is. That's
It's
a
a high
7.
grade.
That's
so
7.
this
Yeah.
brings me to a question, okay, that
Yes.
I'm waiting to ask. Now it seems like a perfect
Now's the
opportunity.
time. Go ahead.
So you know, Bauble sees this card. You guys know this is your thing. I don't know Venezuelan or Mexican or Canadian.
Venezuela's a country.
Yeah, I don't know. Just a baseball card to me. But anyway, you guys know it. You see it instantly. You know what it is. You know it's how rare it is. You appreciate that it's in a high grade, and Bauble says that they don't exist.
They basically don't. Yeah.
Here's my question. How are the thieves going to move this stuff? It is such high end.
Mhm.
They have cards that don't exist.
Mhm.
They're all graded with serial numbers.
Mhm.
How do you do this? Even if they cracked them all and sent them all back to PSA and SGC and Beckett in lump sums,
Mhm.
I would hope, and you know I don't have a lot of faith in those companies, but I would hope somebody would go, huh, look at this stack of, I mean, this is some amazing crap that just all came in. Didn't we just hear about a big, you know, vintage lot just get stolen? You know, let's double check this stuff here. And
Well,
I don't, you know, something, but with the serial numbers, you can't just throw it up on eBay,
nope.
right? And let the world see that what you have, because people are going to know right away. And you know, reputable places like ComC and other marketplaces are going to know and not be on the lookout for this stuff.
And the graders, by the way, the graders, like it's not necessarily, we don't know if it's an option they've pursued yet, but the graders can also deactivate the cert. The same way that as an example, I'm a watch guy. If somebody steals your Rolex, you can, if you have the serial number, you can be like, hey, by the way, this is stolen. And then if somebody tries to sell it to somebody reputable and they check the serial number, they will find out very quickly it is a piece of stolen property because
Right.
of the serial number.
Well,
So go ahead.
I was gonna say to make matters tougher, and if these guys are professional thieves, there is a chance that they have a buyer lined up before
Yeah.
they even do this.
Right.
That's what I was about
But
to say.
if that isn't the case, um, there's even further difficulties because these aren't cards that are just, any old Tom, Dick, or Harry's just going to go and have the cash flow to buy. These are cards that he's able to move because he hits all of the shows. He is a known, like he's all over Facebook in the groups. He's a reputable, known vintage dealer. He's got people that are big vintage collectors looking for pieces he may have. He's shopping for pieces he may know somebody needs. Guys like us, we would have a damn hard time to move that stuff in that kind of quantity because people would be like looking at where in the hell did you get that? Or we would have they would have to funnel it through auction houses. Well, they should be aware of this stuff, and I would hope that they wouldn't let it pass through. Who knows?
Yeah.
So there is complications there if they don't have somebody lined up. Which I was having a conversation with a friend earlier, and it's like, if you're going through all of this meticulous planning, the chances are you already know the end game for it, where you're dumping it, because otherwise you just took a hell of a lot of calculated risk and a chance at several years in federal prison for shit that's worthless because now you don't know how to get rid of it.
Yeah. So without, I'll answer partially because we don't want to give anybody too many ideas. It's not our business to give people ideas. But so kind of to answer your question, Eric, for something unique like the Venezuelan, you would need to have a buyer. You would need to have someone who basically, frankly, doesn't care, who just wants the piece and doesn't care where it came from and how it came into your hands. They just want it. And it will be a private deal that happens somewhere in the darkness of shadow, where Aaron Rodgers hangs out. He'll be in the darkness. It's over there.
See, I didn't know.
It'll happen in that place. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, for other stuff, like, I'm just looking at some of the pictures here, like a 56 tops Willie Mays. That's an awesome card. 56 tops Willie Mays in a 5. That is a card that can fade into obscurity if the serial number isn't associated to it.
There's enough of them to mix it in.
Yeah, that can blend into the world under the right circumstances. There's a bunch of these that can blend in. Even some of the high-end ones potentially can still blend in. Or, and this would be really unfortunate, if someone really, wanted to kind of cover the tracks, you don't have to keep it in high shade. You could knock it down a couple of grade points, and then it kind of blends into the bigger masses. Part of the reason some of these are expensive is because of the high grade, but if that's the only thing, the only differentiating factor, if, a couple of creases make their way into it, it drops a couple of points, but then it could get through the grader. It could get it under the holder. And it would be hard to confirm that it's the same because it wouldn't look the same.
There is the conversation I was having earlier. There is one thing to the advantage and one good thing, I guess, to say about the hobby in general and the, some of the people in it. There is some vigilantes out there that know how to identify these cards. Like the ones that do these investigations to figure out that a
Blowout had their BOTA,
trimmed.
their BOTA, Blowout Detective Agency. Those guys will obsess over like a side by side photo
details.
And find little indicators. Yeah.
Yep.
So
that is one good thing. Like with Carlos' point, they could attempt to make them look worse, but there's still some folks out there that it could still probably bust their ass.
It's true, but I think, look, again, my job here isn't to give people ideas, but I'm saying if you make them worse, you're actually reducing their value.
Yeah.
But it is more likely to blend in because, for example, I'm just using that Willie Mays I just said. It's in a 5. Well, there are more of them in 4s and 3s. If it's a 4 or a 3, there's just a lot of 4s and 3s. So how can you be like, you'd have to stare at a bunch of them and really be like, you'd have to specifically be looking for that one item and looking for those things. But then if it blends into the group and the sale doesn't pop off the page or anything, like, is there anything that would stand out? It would become so generic relatively that it would stand out. But like I said, a Venezuelan in 7,
they don't exist.
So if someone sees one, alarm bells go off. So like at that point, like there's, anyone who is reputable would know. They would know at that moment. Wait a minute. Where did that come from?
There's probably more Venezuelans, Eric, without a number on them.
Yeah.
Than there ever would be.
Yeah.
Especially
it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Like,
it sticks out like a sore thumb. It just doesn't look right because they're just so tough. So something like that it can't blend in the crowd. It just stands out too much.
I know what I'm about to say is heresy. And I don't
say it, Eric. Bobby Orr is the second best Boston Bruin.
And I don't even agree with it myself, but how far are we away? How far are we away from sending something into PSA and allowing them to put some kind of invisible ink stamp on the back of the card itself that can be seen under, ultraviolet light. And
I asked that question years ago.
And we in the hobby are okay with it. That we're not gonna. We all agree that we don't see that as damaging the card. We see it as moving forward with protecting our hobby. I know it's heresy. It's just we're throwing the ideas out, having conversations. So
sure. So look, to answer your question, and Brandon's touched on it as well. And by the way, I've got a little Beckett joke that I'll be able to share with you here in a second as well, just for a little levity here, for a little levity. But before I get to that, look, conceptually, the concept does not offend me, but I think your problem is the second half of your question. The problem is we, and this, and by the way, this could be its own topic. Like we could spend 3 hours talking about this.
Yeah.
There is no hobby we.
Right.
So I'm going to pause it to you, gentlemen, and we can revisit this conversation. There is no hobby we. We literally cannot agree on anything in the hobby.
Even, let's say that we, the hobby, actually somehow broke ground. I don't think it would ever happen, because then you are eliminating too much revenue that these grading companies see, because it would eliminate the ability to crack and send into another company, because it's got a strand there to identify what the grade was. So then it would make the grading companies.
I think though people are forgetting and overstate, because when we do the gem rate numbers, the majority of the stuff is getting submitted as newer stuff. Right, it's not like basically, as long as Topps keeps producing new products, as long as Panini keeps producing new product, there's new grading fodder every single month, every single year that goes by. It's not that the vintage, of course, will take it. We appreciate the business. If you want to crack it out and resubmit it, we would love you to, by all means, feel free. But it's the new product that drives a lot of this new business and the Pokemans. So there's a lot of that as well, obviously, certainly. So as long as they keep producing Pokemans and newer cards, there's still plenty of grading fodder. I think the bigger pushback is not even from PSA, SGC, Beckett, or any of them. I think the bigger pushback is the amount of people that no matter what you tell them, you can tell them it's for security. You can tell them, hey guys, it's to mitigate against this. It's to help you with that or whatever. You've altered the card.
You're adding something.
You're altered the card. You've added something. Even though I understand why you did it, you've altered it and it's impure, and that's the end of that.
Right.
And I think that's the pushback you would get. And you would get that from a lot of very loud people on the collector side. Even though you're doing it for a security purpose, you're trying to prevent some of things that can happen. I think that's where your pushback would be the strongest and the loudest.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I couldn't even argue with them. It makes all the sense. Like I said, I know it's heresy, but if I had this 66 How graded, and they put something on the back that I cannot see unless I get a special light, but that's going to make sure that my card doesn't get stolen. I like that idea. I mean, I wouldn't care. Now, this isn't a $20,000 card. It's not a $1 million, Mantle 10 or something like that. So, again, we would have to agree that on a Mantle 10, 52 Mantle 10, we don't consider that damaging the card.
I'm gonna go a little bit devil's advocate here, and I don't do this often because I agree with the sentiment, but I'm also playing through the hobby. These cards, when they get put in slabs, they have serial numbers on them. And how many times do people buy fake slabs of a card that doesn't look anything like the scanned image that is identified with the serial number? People, like, you can put whatever the hell you want on there, but people are lazy or oblivious.
Yes, I agree.
And I don't even think with that, like the invisible ink or the light, I don't think they would check the damn thing. So I don't think it would matter. You're never going to solve it with that, even because the serial, like, we're talking about $2 million worth of cards right now.
Mm-hmm.
That there's probably people out there that would be completely oblivious that this took place. And if these people wanted to pass them off at a deal, probably buy it and not even realize what the hell they're doing. Think they're just getting the biggest bargain of the day and not even realize it.
Yeah. I will also take what you said and I will extend it one step further and suggest that there are some people who would see this, red flags would go off, they'd be immediately suspicious, but then they would basically say, you know what? Plausible deniability. I don't ask, you don't tell, I don't care.
It's a hell of a deal.
Yeah, but that's just it. And that supersedes everything else. They're like, as long as it's real, I don't care how it got to me. And that goes, but that also goes back to that Rolex example that I gave. There's a lot of folks that will buy something like that and they don't want to check the serial number because they're looking at the price they're getting for it, and they're the only thing I need to know is if it's real. As long as it's real, as long as the item is legit, as long as there's no issue there, okay, I will get my own private watchmaker to do the service on it. That way, it never has to go in. Nobody has to check that serial number, and no one has to have a awkward conversation.
Yeah, I mean, look at other items that get serial numbers shaved off and still are passed around. I mean, some people just don't care.
Yeah, and that's the key. So but I think those are valid points. I think those are fair points. So really, and then I'll leave it open if there's any last thoughts on this. I do want to basically say, good conversation. It is unfortunate. We do hope. So hopefully, so many people have cascaded this now. So hopefully, with all the people cascading it, hopefully that helps them identify and find some of these items. But when it comes down to it, again, even in the piece where we're giving a little bit of critique, it is intended in the spirit of trying to help also, and be like, you got to be vigilant even during teardown. Teardown is not the end of vigilance. You have to continue until it's locked away safe and sound and you know where it is and you don't have to think about it anymore. It continues. Somebody has got to be on with that stuff. And in some ways, it's unfortunate, but in other ways, they kind of lucked out. That's what we showed in that little still image that I shared. It could have even been worse. So hopefully the lesson here is there has to be some kind of a process. During teardown, get that stuff out of the way, get it secured somewhere where you don't have to worry about it. And then that will make you feel better.
I have seen even worse done at teardown when, especially at the end of the show, whether it be a weekend show, whether it be just an afternoon show, the people break their stuff down. They got the 4-wheelers or whatever. They wheel it out to the parking lot, lift open the hatch on their SUV, throw something in there, right? Leave the hatch open, go back in to get another load of stuff. And it's like, you didn't lock your car up. It's just sitting there. No one's going to steal it. Everyone's coming and going. And it's like, that's right. Everyone's coming and going. I've seen it so many times, even at the expo on Sunday. Everyone's dragging stuff out the back door and into the parking lot, and they're not locking their cars up. And you just put X amount of money into the back of your car. It drives. I can't believe it. Thankfully, my parents raised, an honest person, and I haven't gone and taken advantage of the things that I've seen. If I was not raised correctly, there have been many opportunities over the years for me to add to my collection without any cost to me.
So now you reminded me of a little story from college in Eric's favorite place, Guelph. Now, so you know what? I'll share a little story here at the end. But before I get to that, do you want a little card related levity? Shall I share a little card related levity?
Sure.
So I was looking a little bit more closely at some of the images that were provided. Again, I'll include a link in the description to the Instagram. You can check out the video. You can check out the cards. If there's anything you want to share, feel free to give it to the authorities or give it to the Instagram account. That is the dealer. So if you got information, please feel free to share it with them. But one of the images I saw there that was a series of Willie Mays cards caught my eye. One specific thing caught my eye, and I think you'll appreciate this, Eric. So I think you'll enjoy this.
Do I have to get the book?
Maybe you would. So all right, here we go. I want to share this with you guys. So one of the things about Instagram, don't ask me how, because I'm not going to give you a tutorial right now, but you can actually take the images on Instagram and blow them up a little bigger. You got to go in and get the actual source image a little bit. But this is one of the images that was shared with you. So it is Willie Mays cards, but there's one specific one that I want to bring your attention. So these are all cool, nice cards, including the one that I referenced there. Okay. So I want to direct your attention to the bottom left is specifically what I want to go. Eric, can you describe me what's going on in the bottom left? Describe it, Eric.
I'll describe it fuller on Friday, but this is an example of a $1,100 Willie Mays card in a Beckett vintage holder, and the tag,
the label,
has fallen out of its place as Beckett usually do, and is slid a quarter of the way down onto the card. And for whatever reason, the price tag that the dealer put on there is now covering the grade. So you don't even know what grade it is because they put a sticker over that.
Well, so this card is inside of a sleeve, and the sticker's on top of the sleeve. So it's the label. Now, I think based on the shape of that, it looks like an 8 to me. I think it's an 8.
For 1100 on
guess.
that, I would assume.
Yeah, I think it's an 8. But anyway, the point is, yes, Beckett holders are notorious for not being able to keep the label in place. You can tap it back into place. You can put it back. Yeah, but it's literally it's loose. It kind of floats loosely inside the holder if it falls out of alignment for whatever reason. Very common. But it when I saw it, it kind of made me chuckle internally. So I thought I would kind of share that with you. A little lighthearted levity. But if you do find the card in the Beckett holder with the label askew, then you all know. So so keep an eye out for that. But I thought I would share that. That was one of the images included as part of it.
Just a dumpster fire of a company.
It happens, man. So real quick, since Eric reminded me, so he talked about the thing with the car and people going by. I'll share with you a quick university days story. So a couple of buddies of mine were actually, they rented out a townhouse nearby where I was. So basically a lot of it, in that days, it's a university town, so the campus is the big hub of everything. And then beside it, you've got the mall there, the Stone Road Mall. And then beside that, you've got different residences all around it in all kind of areas. And then the downtown area is its own thing with all the bars and everything. But we're talking about where the mall is and all the townhouses. So they rented out one of the townhouses, like 4 or 5 of them. Very interesting dudes. They like to party really hard. Just saying from experience, they had a lot of parties there. But sometimes they party a little too hard. So here is the point of the story. So I believe it was a Sunday, and I slept in as I often do. But specifically in this case, I was going to go over there because I was going to borrow. I think I was going to borrow something, and I was going to ask them. But I waited until early afternoon before I bothered to go by. So I figured that'd be enough time. So I go by, and I knock. Nobody answers. I knock louder. Nobody answers. And I know that some folks are there. So I'm sitting there like, I'm like, where's this idiot? So I'm going to call him. But before I do, I'm like, no, they can't be that stupid. Turn the doorknob. Door flies right open. They had been partying the night before. There are people in the house. Turn the doorknob and fly right open. I go and walk to the living room. And I just sit there for about 15, 20 minutes. Just kind of sit there and chill for a couple minutes. The girlfriend at the time of one of the guys comes down. And she's like, hey, Carlos, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? You guys partied pretty hard last night? She goes, yeah. Is Andrew here? Oh, no, I think he went over the weekend with his girlfriend. Ah, I see. So I pick up my phone. I dial, and it takes a couple rings, but I get Andrew on the phone. He goes, hey, man, what's going on? Hey, Andrew, how's it going? Oh, yeah, it's going all right. You're at the house today? He goes, no, you're not at the house. Okay, I want to let you know I could have taken everything. Click. It's like they never left the door open after that ever again.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what I wanted to do. What I actually wanted to do is once I realized that they had left it open and like they're all dead, like all the bodies are upstairs. They're there, but they're all dead. Under the right circumstances, if I could have gotten the crew together, what I wanted to do is because where the living room was, it went out into the backyard kind of patio area. What I wanted to do is I wanted to take all the shit from the barbecue set and put it in the living room and put the living room set out in the patio. Do a complete flip. Flip of the barbecue set and everything could have been living room, and a whole living room set would have been out on the patio. I just needed a couple more hands, and it would have been beautiful, Eric. It would have chef's kiss. I just didn't have the manpower, otherwise it could happen.
We
were that close.
The old school, kind of square televisions. Yeah.
At that point, yes. We still had those, but they didn't have like a crazy one. It's a CRT TVs, yeah.
Turn them upside down.
Yeah, like there's a couple.
And someone comes in, hits the remote, and everything's upside down.
Yeah. Eric, look, all I gotta say is, and I don't want you to think less of me, but like almost every evil scenario is the first thing that came to my mind. I'm sitting there like going, well, how can I fuck with these guys? What can I do? And I was coming with scenarios, but for a lot, and I did mess with them a little bit, but I was like, I needed more hands. I need some help. So that's what I thought of when you were talking about, the open car and people can do things and whatever. Yeah. And fortunately, Eric, I was raised to think of evil things. I just didn't have the manpower that day. Otherwise, it would have totally happened.
Yeah, but that's still not stealing. You know, you were raised
No,
right.
no, it's not.
And
I could have, but I'm like, you've got nothing worth stealing.
no, I was raised to mess with people too. I think that's, that's not so bad.
Yeah, but
no.
you got to understand, they were university, Eric. They were at the point where, like, I almost would have had to leave money out of pity. Like, they had nothing worth stealing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want this shit. If I steal it, then I have to touch it. I don't want it.
Well, I remember college. You didn't want to touch a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Like, that's why I needed people who were expendable, who could get a disease and they would deal with it on their own.
Even now, when I
soil my hands,
my daughter at college, I'm just like, oh, nothing's changed. You just animals. You guys are just animals.
Good times.
Yeah,
but nonetheless, that was kind of the story that came to mind when you mentioned the car story.
Yeah,
but yes. But yeah, so anything else then we want to touch on then to kind of close off on that again? Wish the best to everybody involved. Links in the description to everything related to it. We did want to have a little bit of, since everybody else is talking about it, I figured we would have a discussion on it. And we had a couple of things we wanted to add. I'm trying to think if there was anything else we covered. I think we covered a lot of the main points. And again, the Sports Collectors Daily article also gives some additional details.
I think,
go ahead.
Not to get into too in depth of it, but something that we had kind of mentioned and discussed a little bit. I think outside of this being another example of the shitty nature of things that happen in the hobby, if you have a few moments, if you're on the shitter or something and you need some reading material, go to some of the videos and evaluate some of the comments, because I think some of those need to be evaluated as well. Because, they may not be thieves, but there's some really crazy shit being said in the comment sections as well. So maybe the hobby in general needs a big come to thought session about activities amongst it. So
see, Brandon didn't want to say it. I'll say it. Come to Jesus.
Yeah,
come to Jesus.
I was trying to be not offend anybody and just
listen. I know Jesus. He owes me money. He lost a lot of poker to me. Jesus was an interesting dude. I know that guy.
Nah, I mean, it's just
man.
sad. It's sad, some of the shit out there, and it takes things like this to like, I guess, have the examples of it. Mm-hmm. But and the other side to it that's really sad, it won't be long and it won't be talked about anymore. Like, as big as this is, it won't be long before it's like brushed under the rug. This might stay active a little bit longer with the national approaching.
Yeah. It's got a little runway with the news cycle because there hasn't been too much craziness recently. I think that's kind of helped amplify this. But let me kind of pick up what you were mentioning there, though. So just kind of a serious note to finish off on. I alluded to it a little bit. We'll have a little more fun with it on Friday. But stuff like this does bring out the best and worst in both people and in terms of commenters and everything else. The thing about commenters, and it's just a truth, a lot of commenters are anonymous. And what's funny about anonymous is that you can say whatever you feel like you want as long as you feel like nobody knows who you are and you don't have to be accountable for it. That in itself isn't a problem because that's normal YouTube and social media discourse. It happens. But I do think this has brought out, like, it's been a magnet for some folks. I want to make sure that in the course of this discussion, we remember one important thing. Bringing additional agendas into it doesn't fit here. This is very straightforward. This is good old-fashioned. Somebody saw an opportunity to steal something. They saw an opportunity to try to make some profit from something. They obviously planned it and tried to work onto it. We mentioned it earlier in this episode. Theft at card shows has been going on for decades. It predates the pandemic. It predates your favorite administration. It'll be here in the next one. It'll be here in the one after that.
The first card show.
Somebody stole something.
Where that was or when it was, somebody stole something.
Yeah. And by the way, that will continue in the previous administration, the current, the next, the one after that, the one after that, it will never end. The only thing people can do is be more vigilant and try to do. And actually, since you mentioned it when we were before here recording, I will add one more critique, and this goes to the Dallas show and the other ones. People of card shows, we as a people need to get up to at least 16-bit video on our security cam footage. We need to get up to 16-bit. Can we get to Super Nintendo graphics? Can we get there as a people? I'm not asking for 4K. I'm not asking for 1080p, not even 720p. Eric, I'm asking for 16-bit graphics. I'm talking Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario World.
We have companies out there that claim that they're going to have freaking machines do the damn grading and do it accurately and efficiently. And we can't get cameras that we can tell what the hell is on the screen.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
That's a problem.
And I said it kind of in jest on the Discord, but it's kind of true, Eric. Ironically, if a couple of the influencers had been there with the camera crews taking some B-roll during breakdown, you probably would have had a better shot at what was going on if they had been facing, even if it had been off in the distance. You probably would have had an easier time seeing these people from the B-roll footage.
Right.
During the show.
During the boom when all those people were there, even if you didn't get the exact moment of the crime, you could maybe go through some of your video and see if
and get a good shot. Yep.
Get a better shot of these guys at a different table walking through the show, and break it down and be like, look at this. I got a 4K photo of this guy who walked by this other person I was interviewing. Same shirt, same hat, same height, whatever. But no one's doing that.
Instead, it's like Leaf with one photo.
Wow. All right.
Sorry, Eric.
Last thought then. So we'll put a button on that. Great discussion. Thank you all for contributing. And by the way, folks in the comment section, feel free if they've got, please, by the way, I will say it now for the YouTube. For the most part on this channel, and generally speaking with the commentary and everybody, we're pretty good. Like the comment section and everything is pretty good. So I expect that of you. If we invite too much silliness of it, I will be a little bit more militant about it than some of the comment sections I've seen. Stick to the topic at hand if that's what you want to discuss, by all means. If you've got any thoughts on anything else we talked about, again, that's fair game. But stick to the topic at hand. Just focus on what it is. At the end of the day, it's a good old-fashioned robbery. The target was because they were valuables. The same as a jewelry robbery, the same as stealing watches, the same as anything else. Opportunity was there. In this case, there was planning involved, and the result is items that have been stolen. And anything else beyond that, agenda-wise, is a little weird. But let's keep it in those comment sections. There's plenty of venues for you to go with your theories. In that regard.
Let me sum it up. Don't be stupid, or go somewhere else.
There you go. And a last thought. So separate from that, a last moment of zen. And this is just a recommendation on the Instagrams. If you DM anyone, I'm not saying anyone is DM me, but if you DM someone and you write one sentence, it's like, hey, I'm looking to sell a card for my collection, and that is the entire thing you write, you're probably not going to get a response. Could you be more specific? Like what from your collection? Like, would you like to add anything else? If you just leave it at that, like there's nothing for me to respond to. Like, okay, good for you. Glad to know. I'm happy for you. Question mark? I'm not picking on anybody in particular, but I'm just saying like that's actually a message I got. I was like, and I'm sitting there like, there's no response I can give to this. Hey, I'm looking to sell a card for my collection. Okay. Is it a card I want? Is it a card I want? That sounds like a declaration. That's a declaration rather than a question. So, and there was no follow-up. That was it. So I was like, I'm afraid you're going to have to add some more information. Maybe a picture? Eric, a picture? Anything?
Yeah.
Like I said, I wanted to end it on a little bit of a lighthearted note. So there's some thoughts.
It's a Venezuelan Willie Mays.
Ooh, I might be in the market for one of those.
Yeah.
You think any might be available?
I hear there's one out there.
You know what I'd be excited about, Eric? I think a 64 tops Willie Mays. I'd be interested in a BVG within a SKU label.
There you go.
It might be a little exciting. Just throwing it out there. All right. We've concluded our seriousness. We exhausted our ability to continue to be serious. So we are at the end. Anyway, so I want to thank AMG Collectibles and AMGcollectibles.ca for supporting the channel and the podcast. I want to thank everybody who does check this out. There will be an audio version of it as well. If you check out the video version of it, you'll be able to see some of the visuals where we described it as best we could. But if you want to check out the visuals, you can include that. And the description will also have the links, like I said, to everything the article, the Instagram posts, which also includes all the different pictures of the cards and stuff like that. If you want to check it out more closely, obviously it's been covered all over the place, but these are our thoughts on it. So we want to make sure we cover that. So Eric Sanderson Orr, you can leave all your hate mail directly to Sanderson Orr on Instagram. He enjoys that. Hit the like button because he pays for it. He appreciates that. Brandon, Baubles and Ball Cards, and he is a known associate of 540 Flips. It is true. You have anything else you want to say for yourself, Brandon?
Nope. Just stay on your toes, people, especially if you're going to the National and everything. Just because this happened to a dealer, just remember, you're going to be carrying bags and shit like that of cards around, cash, wallets, all of that, and just stay on your toes.
Yeah, just be, look, I'll just put it this way. Be vigilant. Be vigilant from the beginning to the end. That includes teardown. Until everything is secured and put away, your job's not done. I know you might be tired. It might be a long day, but you're not done yet. You have to finish the job.
We will be having this conversation again after the National.
Absolutely. 100%.
And that's sad, but we will be.
I was curious also, just to throw one little last note on there.
Okay.
That 68 maize Venezuelan.
Yeah.
So an 8 is the highest grade. There's only 2 8s. And just to let Eric know, when I say they don't exist, there's only 39 total of them graded. Yeah. There's 2 8s, 3 7s.
Well, that one is a 7, so that's one of the 3 7s.
Okay, 2 8s, 3 7s, 2 6s. So that that's 7 of the 39, but then the rest go down from there. So
yeah, basically authentic, because a lot of them were like pasted in albums. It's really flimsy material, very cheap, and that's part of the reason. That's part of the reason they look so washed out. Like, it's really cheap cardboard they use.
Yeah.
So the fact that any of them survived is actually part of the reason they're so difficult, especially in high grade.
And it's very sunny and humid in Venezuela, so it does damage to the cards.
Yeah, all the factors combined to be like survivors. For the collectors that want one, they're not picky about condition, because it's like, look, you take what you can get, because those ones are tough to come by, especially for the bigger players, just because, yeah, the quality wasn't there and the conditions were not ideal to maintain and keep those cards in nice shape. So anyway, so some folks stuff to keep an eye out on. So we'll definitely save some thought about that. So otherwise, more videos coming up on the channel, live streams on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the YouTube channel for folks that check that out. You can check that out. And like I said, hit the like button, engage with it, subscribe to the channel, all the good stuff. And we'll catch you in the next one.